Welcome to Butterfly Recaps. The movie begins during Christmas, and we are shown a police station that is almost empty and has posters of many missing people on a pin board. Following this, we see an old guy named Winston cleaning the police station who is probably alone in the police station. Then suddenly a light explodes, and soon after he hears the door opening, he notices a woman crying, and when he comes out to investigate, he gets startled seeing a woman completely drenched in the rain with blood on her hands, and she begs him to call the sheriff. Sheriff Hudson arrives, and the frightened Winston expresses his difficulty in forgetting what he witnessed. Hudson reassures him, suggesting that he can go home, and assures him that by morning, everything will be sorted out. She then goes to that woman and attempts to engage in a conversation, asking her what she is here to report. The lady remains silent for a moment and then replies that she is there to report a missing person. Hudson inquires who is it, but the lady gets up from her chair and walks over to the pin board with numerous missing persons posters. After observing the array of posters, she questions Hudson if she has found any of them. Hudson responds, stating that hundreds of thousands of people go missing every year, and some of them disappear without a trace. While Hudson takes notes, the lady mentions a missing child named Joe Gonzalez, causing Hudson to break the pencil lead, and she asks the lady if she knows him. The woman mentions that she can still hear the music drifting around, accompanied by jingling of spare change in his pockets. She remarks that he get too close. Intrigued, Hudson inquires, too close to what? The woman inquires if Hudson can hear it, and the scene then transitions to Joe, who informs his mom that there's no more ice cream. Despite his mom's rule of no sweets before dinner, Joe spots a candy jar outside and attempts to grab one. Suddenly, the TV turns on by itself, playing an animated ice cream advertisement. Joe switches off the TV only to hear the same jingle from outside. Intrigued, he goes out to investigate and discovers an ice cream truck parked right in front of his house. Joe approaches the truck and notices a hand holding a clown mask. Joe says he wants ice cream, and the person behind the mask flips it to reveal a frowning face. However, he then gives ice cream to Joe, and when Joe happily starts going back to his house, suddenly that hand taps him on the shoulder. Joe turns towards him and says he doesn't have money and asks if he could go ask his mom. However, the hand begins to stretch towards him, and upon contact, something inexplicable occurs. Joe starts freezing, and blood begins to ooze from the ice cream. After a moment, a horrifying face appears in the window, and abruptly the window closes, and the ice cream truck leaves. Joe finds himself trapped inside a chiller within the truck, and suddenly the Joker appears to haunt him. Back at the station, Hudson asks the woman if she expects her to believe that story, and the lady says Joe believed. Frustrated, Hudson asks her if she's ready to reveal who she is here to report. The lady mentions Tammy, and the scene shifts to Tammy, a young girl, living alone and enjoying her life. Just then we see an entity behind her watching her. However, when Tammy senses its presence and turns to look, she sees no one there. Tammy receives a call from her mom, revealing that they haven't spoken in a long time, and her mother has no idea where she is. Her mom earnestly asks her to consider coming home if she can manage it. Now, as Tammy leaves the area, the table lamps there begin flickering. Later, Tammy is sleeping on the couch when she suddenly wakes up, startled to find herself standing in front of her. The other Tammy shows her the phone, and the house starts burning. However, it turns out to be just a nightmare. Just then, the TV turns on by itself, and Tammy begins watching. In it, She sees a commercial for dating network and decides to give it a try since it's free. Tammy eventually calls the given number, and when the man on the other side asks if she lives alone, she lies, stating that she lives with her mom and dad in the other room. Tammy finds that the man is a little nervous, so she starts enjoying it. She then tries to seduce him by making seductive noises, but then she notices that the man is not responding. Subtly, he advises her not to sit so close, claiming it's bad for her eyes. Tammy, alarmed, sits up and turns off the TV, asking him to repeat what he said. Instead, the man cryptically mentions knowing the sins she committed and warns her of going to hell. Tammy immediately disconnects the call, and the lights in the house starts flickering once again. Tammy hears her mom's voice from the other room, prompting her to investigate, and to her surprise, she finds her mom sitting there. Her mom asks if she knows the pain of someone missing and the joy of finding them. Her mom then looks at her, and the lights begin flickering, and the next moment, her mom disappears from there. The sudden ringing of the phone startles Tammy, and she, fearing for her safety, grabs a knife. Now she starts moving towards the phone in fear, and when she answers it, her mom asks if she's there. Tammy drops the phone, and the man on the other side begins laughing. A peculiar light then emanates from her TV, enveloping Tammy and transporting her into the TV itself. Back at the police station, the telephone rings and the woman asks the sheriff if she's not going to answer it. Hudson takes the call and reassures the caller, suggesting it's just a storm and advising them to stay indoors and lock their doors. The woman comments that Mrs. Francis is always afraid of what is in there. Hudson, surprised, asks her how she knows who she was talking to and inquires about her identity. The woman says that sometimes the answers are right in front of them, and it's as if they are all blind to the reality they are truly in. The scene then shifts to a custodian who plays classical music on his Walkman and begins mopping the floor. After a while, he hears a girl screaming for help, so he decides to leave his work and goes towards the source of the cries to investigate the matter. There, he finds a miniature town model and notices that the sound is coming from somewhere there. Looking carefully, he sees two tiny girls in that town who are injured, and one of them is Leela. The other girl then succumbs to weakness, collapsing in the arms of Leela, resulting in her death. Leela carries on and dumps the gas on the miniature town model, and as she does so, we see many other tiny people there who are all acting like dolls. They all follow Leela and gather in front of her, and then begins moving toward her. Leela lights the flare but gets startled to see that all the tiny people have vanished, due to which she gets scared and falls, and the scene cuts here. The custodian picks up Leela from the floor and places her back into the miniature town model. The other tiny figures then proceed to set the town on fire, and as the custodian departs, the scene shows the miniature town engulfed in flames. Back at the police station, the woman states that evil hides in tiny places, and Hudson, visibly panicking after hearing her stories, questions how she knows all this. The woman responds that all she knows is that it is true. Hudson, skeptical, asserts that a woman doesn't just walk in the dead of night and tell such tales. The woman counters, saying that sometimes the truth is hard to accept, and Hudson presses her, asking who she is. The woman sits there and asks if Hudson has ever made a promise, one that she knew she could never keep. She proceeds to tell the story of Will Rayner, and the scene shifts to him sitting in front of an Ouija board, while under house arrest with an ankle monitor. He picks up a photo of his girlfriend Carol from the floor, and the scene shifts to the past when he was living happily with her. Carol shows the blueprint of her dream house, which Will also liked very much, and he tells her that whatever he has to do to make this happen, he's gonna do it. However, later, she discovers his involvement in drug dealing, leading to her anger. Will pleads with her to trust him despite the circumstances and promises her that he's doing it for the last time and they never have to see these guys again. However, when the drug deal takes a horrific turn, the people from whom Will worked keep him and Carol tied up in their house. Despite Will's promise to return the money, they shoot and kill Carol. Back to Will. He hears some noise in his house. As he investigates, he finds nothing there, but suddenly the door shuts on its own. The tap in the washroom turns on automatically, and as he turns it off, the toilet flush startles him. The shower then turns on by itself, but he finds no one there, and we see the words, "You promised," written on the mirror behind him. Terrified, Will runs out of the house and attempts to call his probation officer, Jem. When Jem answers the phone, Will urgently requests permission to leave his house, explaining that he feels like a ghost or something is haunting him. Jem laughs initially, but Will insists on the seriousness of the situation, and eventually Jem agrees to visit him. Just then, Will sees a car parking, and he quickly hides inside his house. The occupants of the car are the same individuals who killed Carol, and they demand he open the door. Frustrated, Will reluctantly opens the door and lets them in. One of the men questions him about the money, and Will reveals there's no money because the drugs were picked up by the police. They blame Will for getting arrested by the police, asserting that he should have hidden the drugs before they came to dispose of his wife's body. Rob then hits Will, knocking him down, and instructs Ray to tie him up again. As Ray moves forward to do so, the rope around Ray's neck tightens, causing him to fall, and he is then dragged away. Rob goes after Will and tries to shoot him, but a knife gets stabbed on the back of his head, causing his death. Startled, Will attempts to clean up the mess, but just then, Jem knocks on the door. Panicking, Will quickly hides the bodies, opens the door, and Jem jokingly asks if he was hiding dead bodies. Jem observes the injury on Will's face, to which Will dismisses it as just a cold sore. Jem speculates that Will might be suffering from cabin fever, being cooped up for so long that his mind is starting to play tricks on him. Now, when Jem is about to leave from there, suddenly, those dead bodies fall out of the closet and the scene cuts here. After this, we see that Jem is also dead, and when Will, upset by all this, points the gun at himself, Carol's spirit appears there, and the story ends here. Back at the police station, Hudson expresses skepticism, calling the stories tall tales, and tells the woman she's testing her patience. Frustrated, Hudson questions whether she's planning to file a report or if this is some sick game. The woman counters by asking where Hudson's secrets are, to which Hudson says she will go get the paperwork and she can tell her stories to the blank pages that are in her future. The woman gets up, claiming Hudson is a murderer and she can hear her screams. Hudson dismisses her as a psycho, but the woman insists she can see what Hudson has done. Furious, Hudson pushes her against the wall, demanding to know if she thinks she knows her. Hudson declares that the stories are nonsense, and the woman insists they are all true. Unfazed, Hudson says she does not care and she's under arrest for assaulting a police officer and filling a fake report. The woman says she cannot breathe, but Hudson taunts her and then she begins growling like a monster. After a while, Hudson leaves her and moves away. And as the woman says, they all know, the posters on the pen board begin bleeding. Now as the woman tries to flee, Hudson shoots her, ultimately killing her, and the old custodian gets terrified witnessing this. The next day, Hudson chops the body of that woman into pieces and fills them into a Santa bag. She sets up the police station on fire before leaving the place with that sack, and we see that now that the woman's missing poster is also on the pen board. And the movie ends here. Thanks for watching and goodbye.